Hello there, one and all, and welcome to episode 442 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for tuning in, whether you've done so live or you're watching the recording. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so. And if you would like to get notifications of new videos coming your way, please make sure that you click on the little bell icon. And also, one final little bit of housekeeping that I should get out of the way is if you would like to find out how you can support my work, you should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below. All of that is done. What have we got in store for you? First of all, we've got the first comment, which goes to Mache, who says, first comment goes to me. Very well done. Yes. Paroli is here as well saying hello. Oh, Mache goes on to say that he is not a fan of Almodovar. Okay, never mind. We'll forgive you. Joanna's here as well saying hello from London. Abuzarazi says wearing Musc de Sable today. Ah, nice choice. Georgia is saying hello from Santa Fe. And Oriana says something that has just been retracted. Never mind, I suppose it'll come back soon. The joys of live broadcasts. Okay, keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming. The plan for today is to do a kind of longer episode where we will try to cover these things that we've got here. I've got 5 new and newish scents to share with you, and also a little bit of a vintage surprise, something that I acquired a while ago and I thought it would be nice to share with you on screen. It's a perfume that we've talked about on this channel quite a few times, but I don't think I've ever had a sort of old bottle of it in my collection. So I think we should get going. And I think we're going to get going with one of the ones for which I don't have a proper bottle. And I don't know, maybe some of you may kind of think that I'm being a little bit mean starting with this one, but that is not the intention at all. This is new. Now, brace yourselves, because I can just imagine what some of the comments are going to be, but we must always keep an open mind, right? This is new from Montblanc. And, you know, I've just got like a little Travelo thing here, so you'll have to go online to see what the bottle looks like. It is a new version of Legend. Now, who knew, but I checked out, and the Legend line is already something like 12 or 13 years old. I think the first Legend came out in 2011, and there is a new Legend which is called Blue. So save the comments to yourselves. This one is by Jordi Fernandez, but there are a couple of reasons why I thought it might be good to, well, a few reasons why it might be good to review it here. Let me just label the blotter. We have pre-sprayed blotters as well for all of these. Not blue, says DMS. Yes, it is called Blue. One was I had an initial sniff of this, and it took me down memory lane a little bit, and I thought, well, that's a good enough reason to talk about it on the channel. But another reason is that we have spent a lot of time. I am just getting the press release up while I'm talking to you. We have spent a lot of time on this channel over the course of the last few weeks, months, talking about crazy prices, how prices are going up. And I thought that it might be an idea over the course of the coming few weeks and months to actually look at the sense that now somehow fall into the bracket of affordable. So before we spray this one together, before we look at it together, I can tell you that Montblanc Legend Blue in the UK is going to cost £56 for 50 mils and £80 for 100 mils. And, you know, when you're talking about some scents now that are well over £200 for 100 mils, and some are, as you know, are over £300 for 100 mils, I guess this is the kind of stuff that we now have to consider to be affordable. So I suppose it's interesting to have a smell of what affordable means. You know, £80, I think, is still a lot of money, but I guess we're not supposed to see it as a lot of money anymore. I don't know if what are people saying about Montblanc? Ilias says, by the way, hello. Montblanc are among the few designers I like, maybe because I love their fountain pens. Anybody got anything to say about the Legend line? Please feel free to share. So let's have a spray of this one. and hopefully I will be taken straight back down memory lane as I was a couple of hours ago when I sprayed the blotter. I'm having a Montblanc right now, says Pradeep. As in you're having the dessert or what? Kim says, you could put a gun to my head and I still wouldn't buy it. Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, okay, it is a very, very mainstream, second decade of the, no, actually third decade of the 21st century masculine scent, in the sense that it's got a kind of pseudo-y, not entirely convincing citrusy opening, and then it just goes straight into a kind of aromatic, woody, ambery thing in the base. Lots and lots of that kind of familiar stuff. But what kind of made me chuckle the first time I sprayed this was that I'm sure there's a large dose in there of either dihydromercenol or something very much like dihydromercenol, and I was taken back to the good old days of Dracar Noir, and I thought, gosh, this is the closest some of these newer mainstream masculines have got to Dracar Noir in a long time. Incidentally, I smelt Dracar Noir. I've got a tiny little old bottle of Dracar Noir somewhere. And Dracar Noir, I think, actually does what it does well. And as far as I know, it still sells very well. So this is, and the inclusion of this kind of lavendery, aromatic, cleaner aesthetic does temper the woody ambers to some extent. But this is still the kind of thing that, if you're the sort of person who comes to this channel, this is probably not for you. I expect it will do very, very well, but I don't think its target audience is us. And there's got to be something for everyone, right? Let's take a look at the press release. Montblanc Legend Blue, the next chapter unfolds in a legendary story. The iconic Montblanc fragrance returns in a new, fresh, woody, aromatic iteration presented in a clear blue bottle. I mean, I will give it fresh, that's for sure. Being a legend means rewriting the rules or fearlessly writing new ones. Legends go where no one has gone before. I think I just want to get to the bit where they talk about the perfume. Woody aromatic, his radiant aura, his gentle strength, his unconventional wisdom. A fresh, woody, aromatic fragrance reflects the contrasting facets of the legend blue man. The freshness of authenticity and success. Well, do you know what? Authenticity would probably come across as something quite fresh nowadays, and I don't mean that particularly aimed at Montblanc, but just generally. The freshness of authenticity and success is perfectly balanced with the structure and power of inner strength and wisdom. That, you lost me there. The fragrance opens on a powerful, fresh, and aromatic accord of spearmint and lavender. It then reveals an authentic, woody, and do you see what they're doing? Woody and masculine heart of cedarwood and sandalwood. Finally, the ambroxan combined with moss notes leaves an intense and diffusive trail. And just in case we weren't paying attention, they let us know again that the notes are spearmint, lavender, cedarwood, sandalwood, ambroxan, and moss. Sandalwood as a heart note, which is interesting. Kim says, legend goes where everybody else goes, on paths well trodden. I mean, yes. What else is there to say? A new clear bottle for a legendary fragrance, and apparently they're telling us that Zinedine Zidane returns as the face of Legend Blue. They introduced him in September 22, one of the greatest soccer players and celebrated coaches of all times. So yeah, let's go. Let's find out how it's been doing since it was sprayed. How is the spearmint? That's the note that worries me, says Christian. It's really, really very much all about the ambery woods. I mean, yeah, there is that kind of bracing freshness at the top. Where's my pre-sprayed Mont Blanc? There we go. Yeah, and even more of the woody amberiness. So, I mean, I think you can very, very, very easily tell that I don't love it, but I think I should be trying to cover these more affordable scents a little bit more frequently, just so that we've got some sort of a contrast between the crazy expensive ones and the, you know, I'm saying everything in inverted commas, crazy expensive and more affordable. So yes, personally, if that is what is being given to me as something that is affordable, I would rather save my pennies and, you know, wait until I can get the equivalent of 3 of those. And I'm thinking here based on the fact that 100 mils is £80. I would save my money and wait until I could get something that's more in the region of £200. Pradeep says amberwoods must be added to the list of crimes. Somebody's asking a question about Zinedine Zidane, as though I would actually know the answer to that. Somebody else is going to have to answer that. Paul says, I agree to the mix of affordable sorry, try again. I agree to the mix of affordable and expensive. It is quite reassuring to know that it is worthwhile spending money on something interesting. Yeah, but it's a fair enough point. Speaking of more expensive, let us do the second one, for which the second and only one for which I don't have a full bottle. But this is interesting because I believe this comes, yeah, this comes in a 75 ml bottle, what we're about to talk about, and that costs £153. Just to put you out of, to relieve the suspense here, I'm talking about the latest Collection Extraordinaire scent from Van Cleef and Arpels. It's called Encens Precieux, so precious incense, precious frankincense. And as I say, that's £153 for 75 mils, and that's an interesting kind of bracket, I suppose, because again, yes, £153. It's that the 53 is interesting. Why didn't they just do 150? That's is still a lot of money, but it's certainly not in the kind of region of some of the other releases that we've been talking about. As I say, don't have a full bottle, just this Travelo. Now, the Collection Extraordinaire, again, I was a little bit surprised when I was doing a tiny bit of prep and research for this episode, because that's been around a lot longer than I thought it had, well over 10 years, that one. So I gather that it must be doing well. Almost all of the perfumes, the vast, vast, vast majority of the perfumes have name check a specific ingredient. Do you know the reason why I'm just umming and ahhing and hesitating here is because I just wonder if I gave you the wrong perfumer for Legend Blue. No, okay, sorry. I think I may have done, because so I take it back. We don't know who the perfumer is. I said it was Jordi Fernandez. It may well be, but we don't actually know for a fact. So apologies. We do know that Encens Precieux is made by Jordi Fernandez. Yeah, let me just very, very quickly go through the press release for the blue again. No, okay, we don't know the perfumer. So sorry. Apologies to anybody that well, maybe to Jordi Fernandez if he doesn't particularly want to be associated with that one. But anyway, Van Cleef and Arpels, Encens Precieux, an EDP by Jordi Fernandez. And what makes this one interesting is that when I first smelt it, I thought they would have gone for a bit more of a predictable frankincense note. I thought that they may have gone maybe down the route of trying to make something that was a little bit like Avignon from Comme des Garçons, by which I mean something cleaner, more kind of streamlined mineralic, more overtly citrusy, I guess more approachable, safer, easier to wear, more easily likable. They haven't gone down that route, so a pat on the back for them. In fact, this is somewhere in between. So if you take Avignon as one end of the spectrum of how you could present a frankincense composition, and I'm not saying, I don't want to make it sound like I don't like Avignon. As you know, I adore it. I think it's one of the greatest frankincense scents of all time. But in the sense that it is a very sort of purist, clean, heavenly take on frankincense, At the other end of the spectrum, you could have, I suppose, something like last year's Adorem by Fabrice Pellegrin from Ney, which is just, anger and lava, and the world melting and descending into a pit of hell. I love that one too. That one's amazing. Somewhere close to that category is the discontinued Sahara Noir from Tom Ford. By most accounts, the reason why that didn't do terribly well, it was because people just couldn't take it. They found it quite dirty, quite funky, animalic. The Van Cleef and Arpels goes more in that direction. Now, it is not an Adorem, it is not a Sahara Noir, but it's definitely tending more that way. So this is a darker, blacker, more furrowed brow, Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights type incense. Maybe a touch too much of those ambery woods in here as well. But, Jordi Fernandez doesn't normally hold back with the ambery woods. So by his standards here, he's being positively restrained. And this one develops well on skin too. Let's leave that blotter there for a while and let's give a little bit more time than we did to the Montblanc press release for this press release. Inspired by nature since the very beginning, Van Cleef and Arpels has dedicated jewelry creations that glorify gemstones and fragrances that glorify gemstones and fragrances, Oxford comma, that magnify iconic perfumery ingredients in its collection extraordinaire. Today, the Maison is paying a new olfactory homage to one of the world's most captivating materials, frankincense, nature's treasure. Frankincense is the mythical origin of the word perfume, derived from the Latin word perfumum, meaning through smoke, and refers to the burning of this rare ingredient. It comes from a tree that grows in desert regions of the East and takes the form of an aromatic gum resin, which is harvested by tapping the bark. As sought after as gold, frankincense trees were admired by ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Roman civilizations who prized and protected the precious substance found within. Over the centuries, frankincense has never ceased to captivate, retaining its aura of mystery. Now we're on to the perfume. Encens Precieux is a rich, sophisticated woody amber fragrance. This mysterious new scent seems to have captured all the heat of the desert landscapes that inspired it. According to perfumer creator Jordi Fernandez, Encens Precieux is a journey. I imagined the blazing sun beating down on the soil to give rise to a frankincense tree, and I wanted to capture the enveloping sensation of that hot air. There is certainly a lot of heat in the scent, for sure. For this new composition, frankincense blends with spicy notes of black pepper and rose in a fiery, almost crackling top note that awakens the senses. Okay, I don't particularly smell this and think rose, but maybe there is something about the sensuality of it. These blazing notes are warmed on contact with a smoky, balmy heart of myrrh and leather, which forms a characterful accord, gradually becoming one with the skin. Then frankincense reveals itself blended with tobacco notes over a vanilla amber base to give the composition its full roundness. And I would pretty much mostly agree with that, except that I would say that you hear vanilla, don't think it becomes sweet. You hear amber, don't think it becomes overly sort of resinous, ambery. It is mostly a woody, leathery, charred incense, and in that sense, it's pretty interesting. Where is our pre-sprayed one? There we are. Pre-sprayed Encens Precieux. What are you folks saying, by the way? Otis says, I tried Encre Noir Sport today. Rest assured, it can be added to the short list of sport fragrances that are actually good. Okay. I've got a bottle of that somewhere. I should dig it out, maybe. A lot of you I see talking about Nobile 1942, which has some reasonably priced 75ml perfumes for about 130 euros. When do we get a review of the new Chanel, Mr. P, says Millard? Don't know. Pass. I have to wait till I can see if I can get my hands on a few drops of it. Anyway, pre-sprayed Encens Precieux. Maybe it's becoming, and I thought this as well when I was wearing it on skin, it just feels as though maybe it's becoming a little bit too monolithic, too blocky. Some of the more interesting contrasts seem to have disappeared. Yeah, perhaps a little bit too monodimensional. And there's no reason for an incense. There's no reason for an incense perfume to be monodimensional, but yeah, I'm just surprised by how angry they allowed it to be. I wasn't expecting Van Cleef to go down that route, and I suppose in that sense it's quite commendable. I wonder if it does actually contain some of those kind of burnt, um, inflamed notes that were there as well in the Fabrice Pellegrin Adorem from last year. Okay, now let us move on to these ones for which we do have full bottles, and also we need to make sure that we save a little bit of time for the vintage one that I've got for you. Let's do the two from 2787. Not a brand that I've talked about a lot here. It was founded a few years ago now by Romy Kovalevsky. I'm pretty sure the very first time she presented the brand at Pitti Fragranze in Florence, I think the one and only time that I went to Pitti, she was there, and I remember thinking, this is interesting because she used and continues to use renowned, excellent perfumers. I think she tends to work with Givaudan, although I could be wrong. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. And I think she was really wanting to do something modern with her brand, something contemporary. And I would imagine that she has done quite well, because whatever it is, 7, 8 years down the line, and here we are. She released 3 scents last year. I thought I'd bring two of them along here. One is Mosaique, and then the latest one is Persée. So let us start with that one. What are people saying? Christian says, I adore Rule of 72 from 2787. I haven't tried Persée or Mosaique. I have got that rule of 72, but I haven't tried it. Maybe save it for another video. This one is curious. So there you go. That's what a 2787 bottle looks like. Because when I had the initial sniff, I thought, okay, not at all was what I was expecting. I mean, the name is great because the name doesn't particularly give anything away, right? And I love perfume names that don't necessarily announce what the smell is going to be. And yeah, I think what I like about some of the work that Romy has done on 2787 is that she really doesn't shy away from things being synthetic, you know. Just to be very, very clear, obviously natural materials are beautiful and important, but synthetic materials are beautiful and important as well. And we wouldn't have modern perfumery if it weren't for synthetics. And the whole point that, the whole thing that we want a skilled perfumer to do is to create a blend of synthetics and naturals that create a convincing illusion. Whether that is an illusion that what we are smelling is completely natural is one thing, but an illusion that ties in with the perfumer's or the creator's intentions. Now, what I find fascinating, at least in the early stages of Persée, is that as I'm smelling it, I can tell, you know that most of it has come out of a lab. But it is intriguing and compelling enough to keep pulling you in and keep making you sort of work out what on earth is going on. So what am I smelling? I'm smelling something quite aldehydic, but not in a Chanel No. 5 soft, powdery, champagne bubbles aldehydic kind of way, but also not entirely in a sort of fatty, waxy, snuffed out candle sort of way. It's more it's more like a sort of interplay between the whiteness and maybe the powderiness of aldehydes, and also the sort of whiteness and soapiness of certain musks. And somewhere connecting all of this also is an iris note. It's one of the strangest iris scents I've smelt for a while. And it's very difficult to describe, because if I were to say to you aldehydic iris, you may immediately think of Iris Poudre from Frederic Malle, and this isn't anything like that at all, because that presents its iris and its aldehydes in a kind of more naturalistic way. That is a much more sort of naturalistic take on iris. That's trying to do with iris what Chanel No. 5, does with rose and ylang ylang, etc. But this to me feels very, very, very sci-fi, very space agey. And because of that, there's also something about it that is borderline frightening. It's engaging, it's compelling, you want to work out what the heck is going on in it, but it could also be the smell of an android just as they're about to kill you before taking over the world and making just destroying the human race and making sure that the earth is overrun by nothing but aliens. I don't remember the film in the Aliens franchise where Michael Fassbender was playing an android. I forget what it was called, but this could be the smell of him. It's got that very, very, very clinical, precise, somewhat bloodless, somewhat soulless, and yet still kind of magnetic personality to it. Christian says this description is selling me on the fragrance. Prometheus, thank you very much. That was the name of the film. I mean, it wasn't a great film, was it? But Michael Fassbender was very good in it. How does it compare to Iris Silver Mist, says Sophie? Oh gosh, completely different, completely different. I mean, that is Iris on very, very plush musks. That one is very, very emotive, quite melancholy. Well, it's not quite melancholy. It's actually really, really sad in many ways. This is quite restrained. Let's look at what the brand says about it. I don't have a press release per se. But let's take a look at what they say. Per se is not a scent, they say. It's a sensory experience. From its avant-garde composition to its minimalist design, it echoes a new sensory universe that expands beyond the bottle. Apparently, we were meant to credit it to Cher la Maison Dieu. Per se is our scent identity and the olfactive translation of our core belief. There is no scent like the present. It combines the now, the achromatic, and the individual in a sensory experience. In creating Per se, we aimed to capture the very essence of the present moment. This fragrance is unparalleled. It ebbs and flows with the dynamism of change, yet its core remains strikingly constant. Just as time never stops, neither does Per se. It serves as evidence of the enduring without the ever-changing. I mean, okay, that's kind of maybe getting a little bit highfalutin, but let's carry on. Crafting a symphony of achromatic elegance, Per se is composed of a floral bouquet, orris butter, and violet leaves, juxtaposed with clean aldehydes, bamboo, and a pinch of spicy pepper. A subtle underscore of umbrette seeds, angelica roots, and gentle musk complete the incompletable experience of the sensory now. It's a scent that invites, enchants, and evokes the present in all its multifaceted grandeur. Per se is the industry's first olfactive logo that encapsulates the essence of the now. Okay, that's maybe a little bit of an oversell, but it is interesting. You know how some of the Serge Lutens perfumes also, some of his lighter perfumes really don't mind being quite synthetic, and yet they manage to do something interesting. This feels like that kind of thing. If this were released as one of the Serge Lutens lighter scents, one of the low scents, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's look at the pre-sprayed one, actually. So actually, I haven't made sure to label this one as the second one that I sprayed because things could get confusing otherwise. Okay, very, very, very linear. It hasn't changed very much at all, apart from maybe becoming a bit darker and a bit woodier. It is strange. It is strange. Have any of you out there seen the film Under the Skin by Jonathan Glazer, which is just extraordinary? I mean, I think one of the most amazing films of the century. If you haven't seen it, do watch it. But how to tell you this next bit without revealing too many spoilers? There is a bit where somebody begins to lose their skin. And I keep thinking of androids and aliens and otherworldly beings. And I'm also thinking of this could be the smell of the skin that is shed or starts to be shed in Under the Skin. Pradeep says Scarlett Johansson was brilliant in that film. Oh, I mean, yes, she was extraordinary. Probably some of the best work she's ever done. Rachel says, does it genuinely feel achromatic? Kind of, if we accept that achromatic could be white. To me, it feels very, very white, which I guess means it's not achromatic. But yes, if white is an absence of color, I suppose black is an absence of color as well. And it's certainly very, 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 very monochrome and, yeah, very pristine in that way. A sci-fi white linen. So that's an interesting description. You could call it a sci-fi white linen. But, you know, a lot of people will also be put off by the fact that it's really, really quite synthetic. I think the synthetics are doing something interesting here. Where are we? Yeah, interesting, but not for everybody. What are people saying about colors? White is the absence of all colors. Yes, right. Let's move on quickly to Mosaique, which also came out last year, I believe. Very different, very different. Oh, are you talking about the Oscars now? Most likely Nolan will sweep. Were you talking about? I love the fact that that your comments go all over the place. Are you all thinking Oppenheimer is going to win? I wonder. And will Jonathan Glazer's film win Best Film tonight? What, as in the Zone of Interest? No, I very much doubt it's going to win. I mean, I would be shocked. I'd be very pleased if it won, but I would be shocked. So this is Mosaique, credited to Gael Montero. Completely different from what we've just smelt. Yeah, this is plummy, tobacco-y. This takes us into the realms of Idole from Lubin. It's quite burnt. I would love to know why it's called Mosaique. I haven't been able to find out very much about it. All I've got is the blurb from the brand that says, a cold, smoky vibe infused with the mystical sweetness of honey, plum, and ylang-ylang, juxtaposed with clean, roasted cocoa, leather, and oak moss. A unique mosaic of ancient traditions and contemporary tribal rhythms. But that leaves me wanting to know so much more. I mean, what traditions and which tribal rhythms and why this? And I mean, it's interesting that Lubin's Idole plays a similar kind of card as well in terms of its inspiration, but we kind of want to know more. It's the thing. It reminds me of Cher Guy from Serge Lutin's. It's, I guess, the main notes that come out are honey, tobacco, leather, cocoa, that kind of thing. So it's very, very brown. Is it boozy? Says Pradeep. I said boozy a few minutes ago, didn't I? I would say, actually, maybe I take that back. Maybe it's more fermented than boozy. So it's like fermented fruit, or fruit that maybe are on the verge of starting to kind of stew into into a sticky alcoholicness. But it isn't whiskey or rum or anything like that. The plumminess, I suppose, also starts aligning it to some extent with the likes of opium. You feel that there may be a kind of dark, sticky prunol type thing happening there. The notes sound a bit like L'Homme Idéal Extrême, says Bruce. It's more interesting than L'Homme Idéal. There's a lot more to it. It's a lot richer, denser. Probably the kind of thing that we've smelt before, and it's also making me think a little bit of Anima Dulcis from Arquiste by Rodrigo Flores Roux. But what makes that one interesting is that it's got that kind of chili note in there, right? But as far as plummy, sugary, cocoa, tobacco, leather scents go, it is very well done. Maybe just a touch derivative. Pradeep says Idole de Lubin is a great unapologetic boss scent. Where's our pre-sprayed one? Pre-sprayed Mosaique. Is that the one? Yes, it is. What are you saying? Gavin says Tribal Rhythms, reggaeton perfume. The limits of PR press release references are very telling. Wow. Anyway, pre-sprayed Mosaique. Again, pretty linear. But it hasn't done the kind of thing that some other scents may have done, in the sense that it hasn't just kind of descended into a vat of boring woody ambers. It's still got that sort of interplay between the cocoa and the honey and the tobacco. It's very, very likable, but maybe because we've had this sort of thing a few times before, maybe we just need. I think it just feels a little bit lifeless. You know what makes Anima Dulcis so special is the chili note. What makes Idole special, I think, is the precision with which all of the spices have been mixed. This just feels like it just needed somebody to go back to do another kind of work through the drafts to just give it that final je ne sais quoi that would make it a little bit more memorable. Oriana says, so this is the opposing perfume for per se, full of color. Well, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of the black to the per se white. I'm just going to go back to per se actually to smell it again. Oh, thank you. Somebody's mentioning Chambre Noire. It's that kind of thing as well. Yeah, they are very, very contrasting from each other, because Mosaique couldn't be more naturalistic, resinous, balsamic smelling, and per se couldn't be more synthetic smelling. Rachel says, honestly, quite a few fragrances could be described like that, just a little bit lifeless. Yes, because not everything can be great, right? And you know, if I were giving ratings out of 5, this would be a solid 3, you know, maybe 3.5. Perfectly fine, very, very easy to wear. Would probably fit in well with most people's collections, but you kind of you wouldn't forsake your soul for it. And let's do the last one. Oh, have you tried the new Serge yet? I loved it, says Gavin. No, I really, really do want to try that one. I must try and get a few drops of it. This is a brand that we haven't talked about on this channel before, and I know that for a fact because it was new to me when I encountered it last week, 2 weeks ago, and I met its founder. The brand is called Arcadia, and it is a brand based in the United Arab Emirates, based in Dubai. Its founder is a lady called Amna Al Habtour, and I had the pleasure of meeting her in London when she came to launch London at Les Senteurs. And hopefully we'll be able to get her on the YouTube channel for an interview, just because I think it would be interesting for her to tell you in her own words the story of her brand. There are a few UAE-based brands out there, not a vast number. I mean, the UAE is obviously one of the world's most important fragrance markets. All of the Gulf countries are. But what makes Arcadia interesting is that the founder and the creative team behind it wanted to move away very, very purposefully, very, very decisively from what could be called Arabian cliches. So, for instance, if I were to show you the packaging of this 15 ml bottle, you don't see any writing in Arabic. You don't see any of the sorts of, Arabian calligraphy type motifs that you might expect from a brand in the Middle East. So, this is nothing that makes you think of Ajmal. This is nothing that makes you think of Swiss Arabian. The bottles, the full-size bottles, are very, very minimalist, very streamlined. The perfumes' names are mostly not. I don't think any of them are Arabic, actually, and even the name of the brand Arcadia is not anything that references Arabian culture or Islamic culture. So I think they wanted to be seen from day one as an international brand that happens to be based in the UAE. This new scent is, I believe, exclusive to the UK. I don't want to say that it's exclusive to Les Senteurs, but that may be because that may be wrong. But I thought it was interesting. You know, we are so used to and almost a little bit become a little bit blasé to Western brands interpreting and presenting the East or any part of the world in any way they see fit. You know, that goes all the way back to things like Shalimar, and Penhaligon's come along and do scents that are inspired by Egypt and other parts of the world, and so on and so forth. You know, that is not unusual. So I thought it was quite fun, really, quite cool that a UAE based brand is doing a scent that encapsulates their vision of London. And I thought it would be interesting to find out how a Dubai-based creative director would interpret London. And according to Amna Al-Habtour, London is lots and lots of pears. This is one of the most unashamedly, strongly, powerfully, boldly pear-centered fragrances I've smelt for a long time. It took me back to the first time, which is going back a few years now, the first time I smelled Jardin sur le Toit from Hermès by Jean-Claude Ellena, which had that kind of pear and apple and orchard fruit note. It's got that kind of vivid hyper-realism to it, at least as far as the opening is concerned. I think maybe things just start losing their coherence a little bit as the fragrance moves along. But if you like the idea of a pear scent, you do need to check this one out. And as I was smelling it, I was thinking, how do you describe the smell of a pear? It's very, very difficult, as you all know, to describe smells without resorting to other descriptors. And to me, a pear is always like a gooey apple, a wet apple, a slushy apple, an apple that is just on the point of turning. And I wonder, in terms of the actual chemical composition, I wonder what it is that pears and apples have in common, and what it is that they don't have in common. I mean, you know, a chemist or a perfumer will probably be able to tell us. But so it's got that kind of tart note, that slightly citrusy bite, but it's also a little bit wetter and stickier and more sugary than you might expect apple to be. And maybe, you know, the word mushy comes to mind. And of course, pears don't have to be mushy. You get lots of pears that are quite hard, right? But there's something that is veering towards baked pear in the smell of a pear, if you get what I mean. Mirish says, yes, London, the well-known city of pears. But there you go. This is what somebody, you know, maybe they came to London and they thought, yeah, to me, it's the smell of those sorts of fruits. Because of course, a pear is not the kind of fruit that you would associate automatically with the Middle East, right? I don't have a press release. All I've got is just the little bit of a blurb that you can get on their website. It says, among spires tall where history resides, stones whisper tales of ageless tides. In squares and alleys, time abides, a city's skyline where legacy guides. Official notes: pear, bitter orange, bergamot, blueberries, freesia, pomerose. Now, pomerose, again, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe pomerose is a Givaudan material, which is somehow appley, pear-like, and rosy. And you do get that feel here as well. It is becoming rosy as it progresses, and also ambroxan, isoe super, and Virginia cedarwood. So well done to them for being very, very open about the fact that it's got lots of isoe super and ambroxan. Alan says, that's an interesting thought, how the rest of the perfume world interprets London, noting efforts by Tom Ford, Wydian, Fragrance du Bois, and others. I know, that would be an interesting. I liked London's because I thought, sorry, I liked Tom Ford's. I remember reviewing Tom Ford's years ago on the blog because I thought it was just so cheeky, because it was actually presenting London as a kind of Arabian city. And I thought Tom Ford had his tongue firmly in his cheek when he was doing that. I still have my bottle of London somewhere. It was a really nicely done, cardamom-y, leathery kind of composition. Gavin says, London is too multicultural for any monocultural interpretation. But are you saying that because you know London? And I think this is kind of hitting on an interesting thing. Cairo is extremely multicultural, I'm sure, to the people who live there. So is Shanghai, so is Moscow, so so is everywhere. And I think if somebody comes along and says, well, to me, you smell of pears and roses, we kind of have to accept that to some point, right? Where's my pre-sprayed London? Let's have a sniff. Yeah, it just becomes, I think, because the opening is so striking and so bold and so strong and so no holds barred with the pear. I guess anything after that was always going to feel a little bit disappointing. And when you do have I mean, okay, the Ambroxan doesn't immediately make you think of woody amber nightmares. Far from it. In fact, if anything, it's more about the isoe super than it is about the woody ambers. It remains pleasant, charming, sweet, comfortable, probably ideal for spring. But interesting. And I would really love to know how it does. I would love to know, for example, if it eventually ends up being sold in the Middle East. I would love to know if people smell it and think, oh gosh, yes, this really makes me think of London, and I want to wear this because it's going to remind me of that time I sniffed those beautiful pears at the market. I don't know. I think it's an interesting take. Right. So we have done the 5 that you could, the new and newish ones, but the bit that you've been waiting for, this is the vintagey scent. There has been a lot of talk, as you know, about Estee Lauder recently because of the Legacy collection that Frederic Malle creative directed. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just do a little search on the YouTube channel or on Persolaise.com. You will see what I mean. Estee Lauder have reissued what they're calling legacy versions of Azure, Estee, Private Collection, Knowing, and White Linen. Thank you very much. And all of this talk of, what are they like? Are they true to their originals? Made me do a little bit of a hunt, because I realized that I don't actually have an older bottle of one of my favorite Estee Lauder scents, the original, Youth Dew, which came out as a bath oil in 1953. So there you go. The price was right, so I treated myself to this. Check this out. This is a 7 ml spray of what they're calling signature perfume. I love the presentation of this. Look at this. I thought it was really smart. And I've got to show you this as well. Look at, I mean, Youth Dew has always been a dark juice, hasn't it? But can you just see how thick it's become? And it says there on the back, Youth Dew Signature Perfume Natural Spray. You don't actually even need to spray this stuff. I mean, I do love it. You don't need to spray it, but I'm going to spray some of it. Let me spray it. Will it be terrible if I spray it on a Frederic Malle blotter? That's allowed, isn't it? I think that's allowed. I want to do it on a Frederic Malle blotter because it's so large and it can take the spray. Right. So, oh God, look at the color. Isn't that fantastic? Gosh. Wow. Lethal stuff. Let's pop that on here. I really adore Youth Dew. Frederic Malle himself said at the launch of the Legacy collection in London last month, fake tan, somebody says. I know. I mean, I wasn't actually expecting it to come out quite like that. He said that he believes that Opium was a complete sort of knockoff of Youth Dew, and that this then led as well to scents like Coco from Chanel, and that they can all be traced back to Youth Dew, which was, we should say, composed by Josephine Catapano. That juice is impressive, says Claire. I know. Anyway, let's have a smell. That's as young as dew in the afternoon, says Dusan. I know. Good one. It is so beautiful. Youth Dew, I think, is still in pretty good shape. I really like current Youth Dew, both as a perfume and as a bath oil. not for me to use. I love it when Madame Persolaise uses the bath oil because the whole house then smells incredible. It is, in a way, the ultimate kind of spicy, balsamic, resinous scent. There is nothing that hasn't been put in here. You know, you think of a spice, name a spice, it's probably in here. Lots and lots of cloves, carnation-y note, tons of rose, something very, very interesting happening with aldehydes and citrus at the top. The stain is very disturbing, says Oriana. I know. I feel I should be going like this because that stain is really, really off-putting visually, isn't it? But it is so wildly diffusive and so distinctive. What I find particularly fascinating is that this version somehow smells less dated than the current version. Much as I adore Youth Dew, and I really do genuinely adore it, I think it's probably still remains the best Estee Lauder scent. Much as I adore it, there is something about the current version, maybe because certain things have had to be taken out or augmented or changed, whatever the balance has had to be changed. There is something about it that really, really places it within the context of the 50s and the 60s. Now, this older version obviously smells dated as well, but less dated, weirdly. Is there something about the brightness of the top notes that stops the base notes from coming across as too heavy and a little bit too ancient? I don't know, but it works. It's really, really beautiful. If Frederic Malle ever decides to do a legacy version of Youth Dew, I'll be fascinated to see what he does. It just feels like the smell of ancient wisdom. This is some kind of, I don't know, this is some sort of wise, ancient goddess, sage, you know, oracle type figure. I watched Dune 2 the other day, and I wasn't crazy about it, but you know, some of those, what's that religious cult called that only women are allowed to belong to? It is it the Bene Gesserit or something like that? You know, those sorts of women. I would imagine them having sort of rituals where they burn this kind of stuff. It is beautiful, and what makes it particularly beautiful is the contrast between the top and the base. It is not just about the resins and the balsams. A great deal of attention has been paid to the top notes as well, and it's the interplay between all of the elements that makes this such a wondrous perfume. I mean, really, really, really fantastic piece of work, and I'm so happy to have that in my collection. Finally able to catch a life, says Mr. Blackmore. I hope to get a review on some classics that you've never talked about on the channel. Stuff like Safari from Ralph Lauren. Gosh, yes. Anyway, isn't it a bit crude and bludgeony, says Gavin. I suppose it is bludgeony, but I quite like that. I don't think it's crude. I don't think it's crude. I think, you know how Poison from Dior also got a reputation for being rather crude, and then you would smell it and realize that actually it is so refined and so interesting and so sophisticated. There is so much going on there. I think Youth Dew operates in the same sort of way. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for all the comments. If you're watching the recording, feel free to leave a comment, ask a question. I usually get around to all of them in due course. And I should also say, if you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up because that really, really helps. Stay tuned to social media for details of new videos coming your way. But until then, be good. I will see you soon. Bye now.